Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 3rd meeting of the Mount Lebanon Traffic Board. The Traffic Board is an advisory board to the Mount Lebanon Commission. The duties of the board are as follows: makes recommendations to the commission to improve traffic conditions, receives and investigates citizens' requests pertaining to traffic and parking, recommends to the commission and manager means to improve the administration and enforcement of traffic laws, reviews traffic regulations and controls, works with the traffic consultant in the preparation of traffic studies. To assist the board with our recommendations are the municipal traffic engineer, Mike Haberman of Gateway Engineers, and Lieutenant Scott Green, Mount Lebanon Police Department Traffic Services Unit. The traffic board may only recommend action to the Mount Lebanon Commission and municipal manager. The board does not have the authority to approve requests related to traffic. Residents who wish to have a discussion item placed on the agenda for consideration by the board should submit the request in writing at least 1 week prior to the meeting to Lieutenant Scott Green with a brief description of the issue or request, and should attend the meeting that the issue will be discussed. Citizens' comments will be taken following the introduction of each agenda item. If you wish to speak on a particular item, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. You will be provided 5 minutes to provide your comments. If a group of residents wish to speak on one particular agenda item, you may appoint a spokesperson if you so choose. If your comment or concern has been addressed by another speaker, you may simply come to the microphone, state your name and address, and indicate you are in agreement with that resident's comments. Each resident should be provided one opportunity to provide comment on each issue. If you are participating via Zoom and would like to comment, please click the raise hand button. You will be given 5 minutes to provide your comments. All comments or questions should be directed to the chairperson. The chairperson will request that the traffic engineer or Lieutenant Green provide a response when appropriate. Recommendation for agenda items appearing under new business will be limited to further investigation and/or data collection and placement on a future agenda once the requested investigation and/or data collection is complete. The municipality has adopted a traffic calming policy. This policy and related frequently asked questions companion document are available online at mountlebanon.org. Okay, can we please review the minutes from the April 5th meeting? Any comments or corrections? Motion to...
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from April 2nd.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay. Minutes are accepted. Did you get Mr. Laratonda's appearance at the roll call?
It was magic.
Yeah, amazing, just pop in out of nowhere.
Magically appears. Come on, 3 minutes late.
We are prompt for various reasons. Okay.
Present.
Request for old business C. Request for Washington Road to be ADA compliant. Is there anybody here speaking on this? No? Can we get an update?
So actually the update's the same as it has been, so I think this can just come off the agenda moving forward. It's the same thing, we've applied for the grants for upgrading this whole corridor. It's gonna probably be October, November before they make that announcement.
Okay.
So obviously, once you get an announcement, I'll give you this board an update.
Very good. D, request for ADA ramp at Washington Road and McFarland Road.
So this came up, we had reached out to PennDOT prior to the April meeting, had not heard back from them at that time. We have since heard back from them. They had no history from their ADA committee to any of their other departments as to why this ramp wasn't upgraded with any other projects, but as they dug through their files, the last project they did for the resurfacing project really through this corridor all the way down to the Galleria area, was done in, I want to say 2012, 2014, something like that. It did not extend to this intersection. And then coming the other way through Dormont, it did not extend to this intersection. But what they said was they have a project that is scheduled for 2025 that fills that gap and covers all the area in between and would cover this intersection. So, everything from here and within the limits of that 2025 project will include upgrades to the ADA facilities, crossings, ramps, things like that. Other than that, really, if it were something that the municipality were gonna try to take on, the amount of time to figure something out and make something that would even work and get permitted and get a contractor on board to do it, it's gonna be next year anyway, so I think for now, we're just gonna have to live with how it is until PennDOT comes through and fixes it.
Okay, so we should take that off the.
Yeah. Yep, that one can come off.
Okay. Third agenda item, old business, request for left turn on Washington Road and Woodhaven Drive.
Mr. Silverman is very interested, and this has been on there since right before COVID. It was initially, on the agenda, and then we pulled it just because everything obviously changed with traffic for all those years. We have now collected data at the two intersections, but it operates as one. We evaluated that data. There's two publications that PennDOT has, publication 46, publication 149, that deals with left turn phasing and signal phasing and when you should and shouldn't have phasing, and if you do, what kind of phasing it should be. So we evaluated both of those with the data that we collected. And essentially, long story short, is that the amount of left turns that happen there compared to everything else that's going on there and how the signal operates, it doesn't reach any of the thresholds or criteria that it outlines for when you would have an advanced left turn phase. In this particular case, it's relatively straightforward because there is no left turn lanes. There are no left turn lanes on Washington Road. So the left turns happen as it does throughout this corridor in the leftmost lane, no matter which direction you're going. So as we know, that's a little bit uncomfortable and difficult at times during the peaks when somebody stops and can't make that turn. But I think that was the reason to kind of ask about it. That criteria is pretty straightforward. There's a lot of different factors you can consider when there is a left turn lane, as far as different types of phasing, when you can have it and all that kind of stuff, but pretty limited in this situation. The main thing is that in this particular type of situation, there needs to be a 2 different hours during the day where there's at least 2 left turning vehicles per cycle during each one of those hours. So there's about 30 to 40 cycles in an hour at this intersection. Over the entire 4 hours that we collected data during those peak times, altogether, there were 70 left turns, and that's combined turning left on the Longview and turning left on the Woodhaven. We actually combined them and said, well, we'll treat them as the same, even though it's, so not even during one of those hours did you average 1 left turn vehicle per cycle. So the next, I did include a figure in here that kind of breaks those hours down if you wanted to look at it. So, 7 and 9, there's 16. You did have 30 and 6, that's 36. That's less than 1 per cycle. And then in the evening, 23 and 1, that's 24. Again, that's less. I don't know where it went. There it is. And then 11 and 9, so 20. So if you added them all together, it's, it didn't reach that threshold. Secondarily, we did actually model and analyze the intersection during the peak times just because of the heavy volumes on Washington Road. It experiences some delays, especially on the side streets. So we looked at, even if we didn't meet the thresholds, the volume thresholds, what if we did put that phase in, what would that do? And it ends up taking a lot of time away from other phases, and then in particular the southbound phase on coming down 19, because you have to steal that time from somewhere within the cycle. And it actually created a much less efficient operation during the peak times than it already is. So just based on all of those things, we're saying that a left turn phase there wouldn't make sense and isn't warranted.
Go ahead. I was gonna ask, is anybody here to speak on this? No? Okay. Questions?
Michael, so this was looked at on the 27th at 2 separate times and the numbers aren't near the threshold. You don't think that would change if it was looked at, a separate day or 2 days in a row? I mean, if that was a particularly slow left-hand turn day, It
Yeah.
really, it's a good sample.
Yeah, so those are the time periods you typically collect data. Those are the peak times at intersections on a corridor like this, on any typical midweek day, because that's your commuting time. So the volumes you see would be a bell curve. These are the 2 hours where it's gonna be the highest. Even if you had a little surge, a little bit here and there for some reason of left turns, the other volumes are so much lower that you don't even have the need for that left turn phase because you don't have as much opposing traffic, if that makes sense, because that goes into the equation. And I will say that as a traffic engineer, we always say, if you want to have a good idea of what kind of traffic is traveling through an intersection at a peak time or at a particular time, you do a traffic count. And if you want to have no idea what kind of traffic is, you count it twice. So we always count once.
Okay,
It's represented.
thank you.
This is probably a much broader question. I had various other things that I can follow up with offline. But based on those traffic volumes, there are many knock-on effects to this, but it does seem like this intersection and probably others do warrant the need for a left turn lane there. Obviously, we have limited space, but it absolutely does meet the standards to warrant a left turn lane at that intersection. Is there anything that can be done to that effect?
So every intersection on Washington Road warrants a left turn lane.
Yep.
That's such a significant capital improvement project that it's not something that could ever even be undertaken by the municipality. It would have to be a major infrastructure project that PennDOT did, being their road, but, so we're left with kind of, how can we make it as best as we can, given what we're dealt?
Is there data? Is this data that we can then pass on to PennDOT and say, look, this does warrant a turn lane here and we need to do something?
They're
You talked
fully,
about this.
they're fully
Okay.
aware. Yeah.
Is there any argument here on Washington Road that actually the weekends are heavier traffic in both directions?
Say that again?
Whether there's did you consider that there might be heavier traffic on weekends? Like, because of people shopping, so like, I know from driving the road on Saturday and Sundays, you get heavy traffic in both directions. That might be more problematic.
Yeah, you'd be surprised on a corridor like this. Even though there are peak times on weekends,
Right.
it's a little bit more sporadic. There's been so much data collected over the years in areas like this that we know these are the times that the volumes are the highest. We could certainly collect more data and pick different days and things like that, but the demands of that neighborhood and of those streets, they're kind of borne out at their peaks at these times that we collected. And there would be no reason to think that there's a different day or a different time, or that there's something back there that's gonna be this big draw.
Rush. Right.
Where we would say, hey, we wanna look at that. So.
Any other questions? Any further discussion? Anyone interested in seeking more data collection or any further action? Okay,
I don't think so. You've probably run ATRs or automatic traffic recorders on Washington Road a lot.
We didn't do APRs, we did turning movement counts there, but PennDOT collects average daily traffic volumes at different times along this corridor and at different locations that we have access to.
So yeah, they would know exactly when the peaks are.
okay. Next item of old business is a speed hump on Coolidge near Ray. We're collecting some data on that.
Yeah, so this was a new item last month. The resident, I think, was requesting a litany of things, traffic calming, should there be stop signs at Ray and Coolidge? So we just kind of put it into a bucket and took a look at it. The police collected data from April 6th to April 24th. So there's your big window of data encompassing weekdays and weekends. And what that data showed was that the average daily traffic, that's bidirectional on that stretch between Ray and Bower Hill, I think it is about 300 vehicles per day. So maybe 150 in each direction. The thresholds for seeking next steps on the traffic calming policy, even though they didn't come in with a signed petition, is in excess of 2,000 vehicles per day or in excess of 200 vehicles in 1 hour. This had a ADP of 300. Secondarily, the speed data was collected over that entire length of time. The average speed was 25 miles per hour. And in particular, what we look at per the policy is the 85th percentile speed, and that was 30. So that would have needed to be 32 or more to qualify or to get any points. So based on that preliminary screening data, that street or that neighborhood wouldn't qualify to go to the next step. So we would say things that we say and other things, park your car on the road and put a sign in the yard that says children play here, whatever they can do as neighbors, but there's nothing really for this board or for the municipality to do.
Did
Uh,
you,
Go ahead.
did you look at, I seem to recall there were some questions about sight lines or just anything else we can do with the intersection that might,
So that was the second
Oh.
piece.
Sorry.
Look at the intersection of Ray and Coolidge. This is I think it's the westbound approach, northbound approach of Coolidge. So Ray, you see my hand raised right over here. You can see pretty good straight ahead that way. This is coming in the other direction. Southbound approach on Coolidge Ray is over here. And then this is looking up Ray at Coolidge. And then here we're at the intersection looking left. Obviously, there's a garbage can there, but with the garbage can not there and a 25-mile-per-hour speed, the site distance only needed to be maybe 160 feet or something like that. So it's well in excess of what would be required or what would warrant a stop sign on Coolidge. Same thing looking right, you can see all the way down to the next intersection. So the site distance is fine. The volumes we know from here aren't gonna come anywhere near reaching the threshold. And there's also no crash history here. The only thing that I would point out is that there is one of those intersections that doesn't have any traffic control. So based on this review, since we were asked to look at it, we would say you would want to put a stop sign on the Ray approach, the Minor Street approach, if you will, to the T. So that would be our recommendation is to have a stop sign ordered and put in there just to clarify who has the right of way at the intersection.
Is this site distance based on the speed limit or the 85th percentile speed?
It's based on typically base it on the speed limit unless we have speed data, and then we base it on the 85th percentile speed. So
What would it be?
even at 30, because it's relatively flat here, each mile per hour only adds another 5 feet or so in a neighborhood like this or on a roadway like this, it's flat. So even if I looked at 35 miles per hour, it meets those thresholds as well. So typically we want to see it not meeting site distance for the posted speed limit to be comfortable saying, yeah, put stop signs on the on the main road, on the Coolidge approaches. In this particular case, even with 30 miles per hour, it's adequate.
Can I ask, I don't know if this is known or publicly available, but where was the speed taken? Because it's a very sharp downhill, and then there's a bend in the road that will naturally slow people down a little bit, but then they accelerate again into that intersection.
I believe it is straight forward to the downhill.
Okay. Okay.
The police are pretty good at picking out that spot where it's gonna
Yeah.
get the highest numbers.
I seem to recall the complaint of the person was about wanting a stop sign on Coolidge. As opposed, when the person came here,
Yeah.
I seem to recall his concern was trying to get a
Yes.
stop sign on Coolidge, so I'm not sure there's necessarily a need or a desire to get a stop sign on Ray,
It's
just to put a stop sign.
And that may be the case. But it's one of those things where you don't have to have a stop sign at an intersection like this per the vehicle code.
Sure.
If you know the rules of the road, you would know you stop on this approach, but typically when we're asked to look at an intersection by this board, if there's nothing there and there's, where would one traditionally be? If you were gonna put one in, we usually put it in. But it's totally up to you guys if you want.
I live half a
Leave it
block
as
from
is
here.
or.
I live half a block from here. That sight line from Ray is really bad. I have to stop there all the time anyway, just to make sure nobody's zooming down that hill.
Exactly.
So it makes sense to have one there.
Okay.
I live on Coolidge, and I thought there was one on Ray. I stop every time. And with the sight line you have, particularly when you're going north on Coolidge, I mean, the picture you see is a trash can, there's usually cars there, and that does help slow things down, but it's harder when the car's pulling out from Ray on the Coolidge, whether they're going right or left. But I mean, the stop sign would make sense there.
I would be in favor of a three-way, but yeah.
As the outside on forward, again, it's the criteria we've always talked about.
Anything else?
Is the speed measurement device apparent to drivers? Do they see that they're being timed?
This one is almost like a stealth device that's attached to a utility pole. So it's not warning drivers, it's not warning drivers. But
I'm just curious, what was the top speed?
65. It's hard to quantify. There's anomalies with the ability of the equipment. So you'll, if you read things about it, you'll often hear that even a bird or an insect or something that's flying really fast towards it, it'll pick that up. So it's saying it had the highest, there was a vehicle or something at 65 miles per hour. I highly doubt it was a vehicle.
I don't. Is it possible to get the full dump of data,
You get what?
the full dump of data?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just put the summary page in here because it was like 250 pages of data, so.
That's fine. I'm
But I have
just curious to see more than 50th and 80th percentile.
We have a motion to put in a stop sign.
I make that motion.
Second,
A second, then.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? We recommend a stop sign.
And that doesn't have to go to commission or anything because it's,
Right,
so we'll just work with it.
just goes to, yeah. Okay, good. Do we notify the people on the corners? Yes, okay, they'll get a letter. New business. Parking ticket appeal procedure.
Yeah, I guess I'll leave this up to you. I just have a little summary in here. You'll see how accurate I am whenever I say a few years ago, this procedure was adopted. So it was in front of this board several times to get to the point where the policy, and then it hasn't been something that's been handled at this meeting, but the board has handled. So maybe you can shed more light on it.
For various reasons which will not be named.
May I explain that? There's a rule that we are not allowed as magistrates to hear that sort of local ticket. The one we could hear is a state ticket issued by the police for parking. So we had been doing that 50 years. Violating, yeah, right. So when it came up at our meetings, we were pretty much told we're not allowed to be doing this. So that's when we generously handed over to Mark. Thank you.
Mark, you want to explain?
I gave him that
to
headache.
The new people? Would you like to? No, please go right ahead.
Introduce myself. My name's Mark Wheeling, parking enforcement supervisor for Mount Lebanon. Since 2012, I've had the honor to work with Ford and training and traffic services. As the honorable place there at Congo in 2019, there was a discrepancy. And the idea was, which is taking it over pretty much over the state, taking the courtesy ticket as defined as PA alert and taking out the criminal code, putting more specific. So at that time, the solicitor, the commission, myself, and Andrew McCreary tried to develop within our management, ticket management software, the ability to adjudicate online. And so we've actually started in one system and then we changed to a second system. That has been going well. I initially am not letting review. It's presented, a ticket is presented to me, and I have the ability to accept the appeal at the time. I have certain parameters that I follow. At that point, if I decline it, they have the ability, as part of the due process, to find local ordinance and the Commonwealth as well, to come to the traffic. That has currently been done online. And over the duration since this has gone into effect, the board has gone through a rotation of months. there's a conflict, just call me. I can go to the next board member to hear that. But, then those requests go online and the ability to be reviewed to them as a second process to appeal. After that, according to the ordinance, then they have to go to the court of common pleas. And so, since 2019, we've had no issue with it. There was a certain, individual who had made a number of appeals, wanting to debate the ordinance within the appeals. And, that's really not the appeals process. And so, after being denied a number of times, they sought counsel and the counsel fought for what's with it. And at that point, the solicitor determined that although we set it up and followed what was dictated at, 2019, that now there should actually be, because of the verbiage, the ability for an in-person hearing at the traffic board level, that secondary due process. And, now, that's why I'm here, is I had long, text messages with the solicitor trying to get as much information on. Now, because of COVID, he thinks that maybe a Zoom meeting would satisfy that in-person, component of the due process. But what I'm asking is, what would you guys feel comfortable with?
Does it have to be the entire board, or I thought even the in-person be one
It would
person?
be just one that you guys designate, either that one as the hearing officer, or for the specific times for in-person, you can delegate in. One of you would just be able to delegate as hearing officer for that purpose.
Other than this one person, have we been getting, have people been requesting in-persons?
Well, I do, this is just a testament. In a sense, I've heard over probably five, or I've adjudicated about five since 2019, maybe 5,000 to 6,000 appeals. And this is the first one he's got this time. And the fact is, prior to this coming, I responded to them. They said I was denied several times by not letting them do. I was denied several times by the traffic board review. What's my next option? And I wrote an application and review of the slip. I sent a letter that said, well, the court of warrants, your next option is the court of common pleas. They didn't want to go, they didn't want to escalate to that point, and they wanted to regress it back to the board. And there was a conversation between representation for them and our solicitor where where we arrive at. The fact that I guess their lawyer was saying that I really wasn't important to the ability to present our case in person. I've read the statutes and everything, and, I don't know, the solicitor feels that this needs to be done. I personally think that that's what the court of common pleas as part of your due process. I don't know that it has to be extenuated from beginning to end, but the solicitor would like to have the ability to have some form of that, this secondary level of due process.
I gather we don't have much choice in the matter, so it's just a question of how we want to do this. I was. We can spit it out.
I was corrected that this needs to be put in place. Now, mind you, I personally hadn't seen that document that they provided for the 2 weeks.
Right.
There were documents presented, but it was never addressed until this last meeting, and any need for any, it's never, again, it had never been asked prior to this, so. Again, I want to be reduced to your schedule to the fact that this board, that, there was one suggestion that maybe all made for, I personally think that would be.
Yeah.
that as a deterrent, it's something they want to go to the extra. I think if you, enough individuals make it, you'll have to ask you, I don't think the current process with how we're communicating online with the email sent out once a month to a board member or maybe meetings, but this one to come together once a month. So, but it's usually just one or two tickets and it's one a month, and I don't think it's too on our to communicate. But again, we do have to make some sort of exception for in-person here at this level. And I would hope that after certain, an individual has in person, then they can have their ability in person to complete their case. And it would probably be very limited, but I can't say there won't be an individual throughout the process who just want to contact me or every case. To allow this to be, and to make sure that there are.
Where would you envision these hearings occurring?
Well, again, one of the options that I just found out today was could be done through Zoom, or we could schedule it prior or after one of these meetings, or at your, again.
I personally think for the convenience of the people on the board or whoever the monthly hearing officer, I don't see a need, unless the solicitor thinks otherwise, I don't see a need for the entire board to adjudicate.
Just a hearing officer is fine.
If we can do, and will be more convenient also for whoever is appealing the ticket, if we can do it by Zoom, which many things are done that used to not be done by Zoom are now all done by Zoom or Microsoft Teams.
That was kind of if you maybe type of an email response that he did use the word maybe. The ability, we may be able to do it.
The courts are allowing it, so I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah.
If that's,
And for this level of an issue, I don't think that's gonna be an issue at all.
so, again, it wouldn't have to be with the, one of the options is to be the date certain. See, one of the things is within the ordinance, I have 14 days a year from the day of this. They have 14 days to appeal a ticket from date of this. I have 14 days to reply. They have 30 days from that point to appeal to you. And then there's 30 days to appeal for a hearing. And then, once the hearing is set, there's 30 days to response. There is nothing in between the date that they requested appeal. I can set that hearing date anytime. There's not yet, because, so there's a window there. So again, I understand you guys have meet or in month, or in June, maybe, or July. It's not all 12 months a year. So again, there is some ability to, to move it out.
What you could do too is you see who the hearing officer is for that month. You could say, hey, what day do you want to hear appeals if they come in?
And that'd be
And
fine.
then
Again,
that way we would work right with you and just say, this is the date I'm available.
and, and then would you prefer in person? Would you like us to sit the route of the Teams type, Zoom? Computer?
I think that would depend on the timing in the month.
All right. So would you prefer that we just do it case by case issue?
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I think fine, asking whoever the monthly hearing officer is, what day would you like to hear the hearing is fine. I think after these meetings is a little unwieldy, especially having somebody waiting here and then maybe expecting to see the entire board. My preference is to almost always do it by Zoom, if possible. It's just more convenient and easier to schedule. I assume for most of us, we would want an evening hearing no matter what, because most of us work. Or, so, rather than having to find a time when this room or another room is available for hearings. I mean, that's only my thought, please.
And I'll defer to the foreman.
Hey, I'm free lunchtime. In fact, I'm free all day. I'm retired, so, but I think, you know. Go ahead.
Because I think if it's an in-person, it should be dictated by the hearing officer, the time and date.
Right.
Is there anything where, provision where the appellant has the right to request a certain day or, change? I mean, if you set a date, that's the day they're hearing, whether you come or not, it's up to you.
I would think you would want to, again, for an issue as low level as this, you would ask, you would ask that person, are you free in the evenings? Are you free during the day? You know, and then try and schedule it that way. I mean, because when I ran my court, I mean, granted, we didn't have any weekend hours, but I started at 7 o'clock on some days. I would stay till 5 or 6, depending on who was there. We really tried to cooperate with them to give them their say. So I would think whoever the hearing officer is that month, I think you set it up with that hearing officer because like I said, everybody here works but me. I mean, I can do it before lunch, after lunch, you know.
I think, I mean, my preference is for us to dictate the date and time with, you know, the understanding that just like in any court or any sort of hearing, if it's a problem for the appellant, you know, you try to accommodate it if it's possible.
Within reason.
Within reason.
Yeah.
I mean, within reason, for when the hearing officer is available and when the appellant is available.
Do you see this happening maybe one day out of the month? A couple days out of the month?
I see it. Currently, the online process, you're getting one a month.
So we're looking at right now,
So, With,
yeah.
with a request for an the ability to test, I might be, conservative, but I'm saying maybe only twice a year at most.
I would have to agree with, you check with the hearing officer, maybe set up a day or two that they would be available.
And I can find out their availability and say,
Right.
Yeah.
and then reply to the appellant that these are the times available for you. But again, I think the greater latitude you give, the greater latitude that we take.
Right.
Sure.
So
Oh.
I think the fact is that at some point with maybe a particular individual, you may need to just say, this is the time and day, we need to adjust your schedule accordingly. And if you don't show, then you're found. Guilty.
Right.
Or not guilty.
Yeah, you do everything within reason, right? You don't, you don't let the people run the Zoom, you know what I mean? It's like,
And
it's,
then
you know what I'm saying?
we will, just like everybody else, get a Zoom invite or Microsoft Teams.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
I'll make sure I get involved with that piece, so that everybody has to present what they need to, and, I'll probably do a little bit of baby testing first.
Sure.
To make sure, a lot, but, again, it's just, I started getting this in 1983, so, again, the people who may take it to this level, again, are not. So again, so just so you're aware of it, I think this, again, at some point, there may have to be, this is it.
This is Teresa via Zoom here, and I'm just having a little bit of difficulty with the audio. So I just wanted to clarify one thing. When we do have these, these hearings, is it correct that to assume, and I think this is what we were discussing, that the person on the traffic board whose turn it is to do the tickets for that month, that would be the person that we would be included in the hearings. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that because I wasn't sure. Thank you.
And Teresa, again, and to any of the board members, anytime there's a conflict, if there's something comes up, even though you're up and we're looking at a specific week due to time constraints, we can always go to another. There's nothing holding that a designate, this is just for convenience that we rotate through, so.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
So one
Exactly. Yeah, okay.
officer could do it for 1 week, and if they couldn't, we could easily ask another. So-
Okay. If I have to fill in for anybody, it may require a slice of pizza from Beto's or whatever. Just saying. Thank you.
Can I clarify as well? Does the online appeal process still exist and the in-person is an additional option for
It's
that?
an additional option, yeah,
it-
so.
It could be that during our month, right, we would get some number of online and maybe one in person or something like that.
And yes, typically, from what we've been seeing, is you'll probably get 1 online request per month. That's what we've been averaging. And then, so the fact that anybody, it's for the end user, if I'm it's easy for me to put an appeal and everything. So I think the people who just want to maybe think, maybe somebody else would be more sympathetic to my argument, they use the online thing. And so the fact that their time's valuable, whether they want to actually come in person. But as I said, what the genesis of all this is somebody who actually wants to argue the ordinance itself and other aspects of the overnight parking, which is not the appeals process. So, but I think they were frustrated and wanted to be heard, and so it came between our solicitor and their attorney. And we found.
Go to the commissioners meeting.
Anybody wants to wear my robe for one of these, you let me know, okay?
So I see nothing pending in the immediate future. There are some things internally we have to do. We have to get, there's a form that they will have to fill out, submit. And then once I receive that form, I will contact the hearing officer and proceed from there to find out a date certain that's convenient or times that are convenient, and then send that date to the appellant and set up the Zoom. And if that's not, then we'll continue the process. Thank you very much.
Mark, was this just you playing around with the signing?
Well, what happened was, I wanted to get the 3 that were going off. Give them one last fun a little turn in the fun house. So, then I just took the names and just put them out. So it was just the way they felt. Again, if you need me to change, I can change that. If you're like, well, I'm going to be in Barbados that month.
And remember, you have 30 days. So even if you're gone for a week and month, you have 30 days.
Right, and we can.
To
Right,
address it,
exactly.
so it's not.
And, yeah, and again, I tend to allow, if I get something on a Wednesday, I'll wait because I'm adjudicating every day. And so I won't send it out till, end of day Friday in case another one comes in, so you're not getting, a bunch of ones at a time. That I try to gather them at least at a certain point at week's end, send them, so you have the weekend to look at it. And if you have any questions, contact me on Monday. Or if you're actually, you can just call me and I can, take a verbal adjudication and enter it, so. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your attention to the matter.
Thanks,
I
Mark.
appreciate it.
Thanks for putting the work into this.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion. Oh, wait a minute.
Wait, I'm sorry. Items from the floor.
No, I just was coming up to thank you, welcome the new members to the traffic board. I realized I had to escort one in today.
Appreciate
But yeah, no problem. But anyway, thank you for stepping up and volunteering. Appreciate all the questions, for instance, on the Woodhaven thing. Obviously it didn't work out, but thank you all for your detailed questions, and I'm around as liaison, so any questions, let me know. Okay, thank you very much.
Make that motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Meeting adjourned. Where's my gavel?
Have a good evening.